Hey guys, afternoon everybody. Um, just let me know if you guys can hear me before we start, please. All right, so you guys are saying you can hear me, so we'll get started right away. So guys, we only have a few more days before the exam. All right, I know some of you all were relaxing this afternoon, but we're gonna try to cover some topics today in class. All right. Um, let's get started right away. All right. Now, if you do know the answers to some of the questions, feel free to write the answer in the chat if you can. All right. So this first question here, we want to write the numeral in words. All right. So we have this number here, and we want to write this number in words here. Now, in your exam, the first 20 questions are going to be straightforward questions. All right. Now, when I say straightforward questions, we need to be able to answer this question as quickly as possible and as accurately as possible. In section 1, we don't necessarily have to show or work in some of these questions here. You can work them out in your head, and that's no problem. All right. So I see some of you are writing the answer in the chat already. So let's see. So for this number here, right, we have 86005. So this number here is actually 86,000. Right? Now 86,000 here, right? We have a 0 here and we have a 0 here. All right? We have this 5 here in the 1 position. So this is basically 86,005. That's it. All right? So the first question is typically based on place value, or either we write a number in words, or we are given words and we have to write that in numerical form. Okay? So that's our first question here. What about the second one here? Right, you all should find this one very easy. We want to write down the value of the underlined digit in this numeral below. This 7 here. What does that 7 represent there? What does that 7 represent there? All right. Some people asked about the session. The session may be about 2 hours long. All right. All right, so I'm seeing some answers here. So some people saying 7,000, some people saying 70,000. So the value of the 7 here is actually 7,000, right? Not 70,000, it's actually 7,000. So look at this one here. So sometimes we could be given what we call expanded notation, and we have to write the numeral represented by that expanded notation. All right. So have a look at this, right? Have a look at this. Right, I know some of the students here may be believing it is CSEC maths, right? For those of you guys who are here from my normal CSEC maths class, this is for SCA maths, right? And this is what is done in primary school at the end of standard 5, okay? All right, I've seen some answers here. Now, for these kinds of questions here, you want to get these things correct, right? We don't want to find ourselves in a situation where it's incorrect. So what you can do, so this here is 4 by 100,000, all right? So what we could do, right, we can say, all right, 4 by 100,000, that'll be 400,000. Right, now some students could just look at this and write out the answer. Not everybody can. This next one here is 2 by 10,000, so that is 20,000. So that is 20,000. This next one here, we have 1,000. So this is 1,000. Then we have 5 by 10. So that's 50. So this here will be 50. Now these here, right? 8 multiplied by 1/10 that is actually 0.8. All right, this here is 0.8. This is 1/10. This one here is 6 by 1 over 100. So that is 100th, right, position. So this is going to be 0.06. So basically, in expanded notation, what this is going to be here, this is going to be 6, this is going to be 8, this is going to be 0, this is going to be 50, this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, right? So it is 421,050.86, right? So be careful. This is a straightforward question here, but you have to be careful, right? So you could be given expanded notation and you have to write a numeral represented by this, okay? So look at this next question here. Question 4. We want what is the highest common factor of 27 and 36. So you guys need to understand what is meant by a factor and also what is meant by a multiple, right? All right, some people are saying 9. So first of all, you guys need to know what is meant by a factor. All right, now a factor is simply a number, right, that can go into another number without leaving a remainder. So for example, let's look at the number 27. And if we want to write down the factors of 27, right, so 1 can go into 27, right? 3 can go into 27, 9 can go into 27, and 27 can go into 27. These are the factors of 27. So if I were to take 27 and I were to divide it by, let's say, 3, I'm going to get 9 and there's no remainder. If I were to take 27 and I were to divide by, let's say, 9, I'll get 3 and I will not get a remainder, right? So these are the factors of 27. When it comes to a number like 36, 36 has a lot of factors, all right? So in this case here, we have 1, we have 2, right? We have 3, we have 9, well, we have 4 as well, right? We have 9, right? We also have 12, we also have 18, we also have 36, all right? So 36 has a lot of factors. Now, in this case here, we want to know what is the highest common factor. Now, when we speak about highest common factor, we're talking about the largest factor that is common to both of them here. Now, what you'll notice is that you do have some factors that are in common. We have 1 in common, 1 in common. We have 3 in common, 3 in common. We also have 9 in common, 9 in common, and that's it. But we want the highest one here. So in this case here, the highest number that can go into both of them will be 9. That's the answer here. All right, so that's what we call HCF, right, or highest common factor. Next one. What about this here? Typical exam question here. We are given a mixed number and we want to write it as an improper fraction. We have 5 and 3/8. What do you all think is the answer for this one? Right, I've seen some answers already in the chat. Great. So we want to write 5 and 3/8. You want to write that as an improper fraction. So what we normally do, all right, we will take this 5 here and we're going to multiply by this 8. So that 5/8 are 40. And then we're going to add that to this numerator here, which is 3. So you're going to get 43. So this answer here is going to be 43 over 8. All right. Now, sometimes they give us mixed numbers and we have to write that as an improper fraction. What we can also get as well, and I just give you it here one time. What if you all had something like this? Let's say 39 over 5. And I wanted to write that as a mixed number. Could you all write that as a mixed number for me? Right, I have 39 over 5, and I want to write that as a mixed number. That's another question that we could get in the exam as well. All right, you're given an improper fraction, and we want to write that as a mixed number. Right, so I've seen people saying 7 and 4/5. So in this case here, we're going to ask ourselves, how many times can 5 go into 39? So 7 5s are 35. And we need to make up the 39, so we need 4 more. So it's going to be 7 and 4 over 5. All right? So be prepared to answer that, to be able to convert from mixed number to improper fraction, and from improper fraction to mixed number. Okay? All right, so that's number 5 here. Now, we can get simple divisions like this. If we have 512 and we want to divide that by 12, what is this answer here? 512 divided by 12. Right? I don't have the time to monitor every single thing in the chat, right? So guys, please note that this is a session for those who are willing to learn, those who want a little extra push for the exam. All right, if you are here to waste time, then I suggest you exit. All right, please try to be respectful of everybody else. All right, my time is important and your time is important. All right, students are here because they want to do better in the exam. All right. Right, so we wanna divide 512 by 12, right? What you all getting for that? All right, so I've seen some answers coming in here. So we have 512, right? And we want to divide that by 12. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to say, okay, 12 can go into 51 how many times, right? So if you look at that there, we can say 4 multiplied by 12. 12 by 4 is 48, right? And then we're going to subtract this. That's typically how we do a long division, all right? Now 51 minus 48, right? So we're going to borrow from this 5 here. So this becomes 4 and this is 11. 11 minus 8 will give us 3. Next step in the process, we need to bring this 2 down here, all right? So then we're going to ask ourselves, 12 into 32 is how many, right? 12 into 32 is going to be 2, because 2 by 12 will give us 24. Then we're going to subtract again, right? You're going to borrow from this 3 here. This becomes 2 and this is 12. 12 take away 4 will give us 8, right? So now you notice you have nothing here as well, but you have a decimal point here. So what we're going to do, we are going to put a decimal point here and then we're going to come down. Now at this stage here, you can either give your answer as a decimal or we can say it is 42, right? And we have a remainder of 8, so it's 8 over 12. All right, now that 8 over 12 could be reduced, so we can say 42, right? And 4 can go into 8 2 times, and 4 can go into this 3 times. So we can give our answer as 42 and 2/3 if we want. All right. All right. Somebody said I missed a factor in the previous one. Let's see. Go back here for a sec. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is true, right? There is a factor. 6 is also a factor, right? So there is a missing factor. Yep, I agree. Right, so this is 42 and 2/3. Let's look at this one here. This one is typical multiplication here. We have 28 multiplied by 54. These are things you all doing since standard 2, standard 3, around there, right? What is 28 multiplied by 54? These things are supposed to be worked out quickly in the exam and accurately. Right? Okay, I've seen some answers coming in here. So we want to multiply 28 multiplied by 54. All right, so first thing we're going to say 8 by 4 is 32. So you're going to put your 2 here. You're going to put your 3 here. 2 by 4 is 8 and 2, 10 and 1, 11. So this is going to be 112 on top here. We're going to put a 0, right? Then we're going to say 8 by 5. You're going to get 40, right? So we're going to put a 0 here. And then we're going to put a 4 here. So 2 5s are 10 and 4 is 14. So in this case here, we're going to add now. So this is going to be 2, 1. This is going to be 5. And this is going to be 1. All right. So the answer is going to be 15, 12. This is something that you should be able to get correct easily in the exam. All right. Next one. A bag contains 9 mangoes and 16 oranges. What percentage of the bag contains oranges? Right? What percentage of the bag contains oranges? Right, a bag contains 9 mangoes, 16 oranges. What percentage of the bag contains oranges? Simple question. Right, I've seen 64%. Let's check that to see if that's correct. So the first thing we have mangoes, right? And we have oranges, right? So you have mangoes and we have oranges. All right, so we have 9 mangoes and we have 16 oranges. So the total number of fruit that we have in the bag here will be 9 plus 16, which would be 25. So 25 represents everything that is inside the bag. Now we want to know what percentage of the bag contains oranges. So we want to work out the percentage of oranges in the bag. So percentage of oranges will be, we have 16 oranges here. So this is going to be 16 over 25, because out of the 25, we have 16 oranges. And we're going to multiply that by 100. That's typically what we do when we want to convert to a percentage. So these are some quick things that we can do. 25 can go into 25. 25 can go into 100 4 times. So all I really need to do is to take 16 and multiply by 4. So that's 6 4 is 24. 1 4 is 4 and 2 6. So we're going to get a percentage here of 64%. All right, which is what you guys are saying, right? The majority of you are saying that. So just be careful, right? Next part. So we have a rectangle here, and this rectangle ABCD represents a whole. What fraction of the rectangle is shaded, right? What fraction of the rectangle is shaded. All right. So I've seen a lot of answers coming in here. All right. One thing as well, I just watching the chat here, right? Guys, again, I'm gonna remind you, those who are here to learn. All right. If you are not, then you can leave the chat, right? But please, there are lots of students here who are willing to learn. All right. Okay, so we have a rectangle here, and we want to know what fraction of the rectangle is shaded. So basically, we need to figure out what is this fraction here. Now, to do that, you have to remember that when we consider a whole, 1 is what we use to represent a whole. So let's logically understand what needs to happen here. The first thing we need to do, we need to add up 1/3 plus 7 over 15. So we're going to add those two fractions, and then we're going to subtract that from 1 in order to figure out the shaded region, right? That's essentially what we need to do. Now, when you're adding fractions, one of the quick things we can do is to really come up with equivalent fractions. So if we have 7 over 15, what you could do, you could recognize that, wait a minute, this is 15 here. Let's write 1/3 as something over 50 to make our life easier. So in a question like this, what you can do, you can say, all right, how do we convert this 3 into 50? You're going to multiply by 5 in order to make that happen. Now, whatever you do on the denominator, we need to do the exact same thing on the numerator. So 1 by 5 will give us 5. So therefore, this here, this 1/3 could be written as 5 over 50. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to add those two fractions there. We're going to add 1/3 plus 7 over 15, right? But what I'm going to do, let me replace the 1/3 by calling it 5 over 15. And we're going to add that to 7 over 15. So now it's easy to add because we have the same denominator. So 7 plus 5 is 12. And then we have 15 here, right? So 5 over 15 plus 7 over 15 is going to give us 12 over 50. So this here represents the sum of this area plus this area here. Now, 1 in terms of 15s will be 15 over 50, right? The whole is 15 parts. So the area of the shaded region, is simply going to be 15 over 15, right, minus 12 over 15. When I work this out here, 15 minus 12 will give us 3. So that's 3 over 15. Now this could be reduced, right? And this could be reduced to give us 1/5. So the answer is going to be 1/5, right? Make sense? Right, so that's question 9. What about this one here? We have to divide 2 decimals here, right? We have to divide 2 decimals. All right, I've seen a lot of people saying 16.8. So when you have to do a division like this, we have 10.08 and we want to divide that by 0.6. Now, if you have to perform a division like this, what we normally do, we will convert the denominator here into a whole number, right? So we're going to shift our decimal point. Now, whatever you do at the bottom, you have to do the same thing at the top. So I'm going to take this decimal point here and I'm going to shift it to the right. All right, so this will become 6. I'm going to do the exact same thing on top here. So this is going to be 100.8. All right, so that's the division we're actually trying to do here. 100.8 divided by 6, right? So we're going to do this a short way here. All right, so let's see, right? 6 can go into this one time. Now let's start dealing with this 100.8 here. Now 6 can go into this here, right? One time, right? And 1 6 is a 6, and you're going to get a remainder of 4, right? So we're going to have a 4 here. So now we're going to ask ourselves 6 into 40, right? So 6 into 40, you'll get 6 because 6 6 is a 36, right? And you're going to have a remainder of 4. So we're going to put that 4 here now by this 8 here. So 6 into 48 is going to give us 8. So the final answer is going to be 16.8. All right. So you guys need to know how to be able to divide two decimals. All right. So the answer is going to be 16.8. All right. What about this one here? We can get a calendar in the exam. So as a part of the calendar for the month of August is shown below. On what day of the week is the 22nd of August? All right, on what day of the week is the 22nd of August? All right, people saying Tuesday, right? Okay, so if you're given a question like this here, the calendar is incomplete, but we want to get to the 22nd. So all you all need to do here is to just fill out the rest, right? 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22, right? So the 22nd of August actually falls on a Tuesday, right? So the answer here is going to be Tuesday. All right. What about this one here? A pineapple and a small pumpkin are on a scale. The mass of the pumpkin is 1295 or 1295 grams. What is the mass of the pineapple in grams? Now, when you all are given questions like this, please watch to see what they want the unit in. Sometimes they may ask us for grams, sometimes they may ask us for kilograms. So you have to be careful. You have to pay attention to that, right? All right, I'll go back to the decimal question in a sec, right? I'll go back to the decimal question in a sec. The class has been recorded, right? The class has been recorded, so you can go back to it as well. Right? But when I'm finished with this one here, I'll go back to the decimal. Give me one sec, right? So some people saying 4,500, some people saying 3,205. So let's see which one is correct, right? Let's see which one is correct. So first of all, so the mass of the pumpkin, right? So this one here looks like the pumpkin, right? So this here is 1295, right? Grams, right? That's the mass of the pumpkin, right? Now the question wants you to work out the mass of the pineapple. That's this fella here, right? sure you guys know what a pineapple looks like. Now, the first thing, we have those two things on the scale here. So we need to read off the scale first of all, right? So the total mass of the pineapple plus the pumpkin is actually 4.5 kilograms or 4.5 kilograms. If you look at the scale here, look at where the arrow is pointed, right? It's 4.5 here. Now, this here, what I would do, I would convert this into grams one time by multiplying by 1,000. So that's 4,500 grams. So that's the mass, that's the total mass of the pineapple plus the pumpkin. So if you want to get the mass of the pineapple, all we need to do is to take the total mass, which is 4,500, and we are going to subtract the mass of the pumpkin, which is 1,295. And when I work this out, I'm going to get the answer, right? So we need to do some borrowing here. So let's borrow from this guy here. So this will be 4, right? This will be 10. So this will be 9. And this here will be 10, sorry. So 10 take away 5, we get 5. 9 take away 9, we get 0. 4 take away 2, we get 2. And 4 take away 1, we get 3. So this here, right, 3,205, that represents the mass here of the pumpkin, right? So this here, the pineapple, right? This is the pineapple, right? Now again, these section 1 question types, right? These are questions we should try to get correct, right? We should try to get them correct, all right? Now let me just go back to the decimal question a sec here. So with the decimal question here, guys, you want to work out 10.08 divided by 0.6. When you are doing a division, especially with decimals, this number here, right, your divisor, it needs to be converted into a whole number first. So what I did, right, you had 0.6. I shifted my decimal point to the right, so this became 6, right? For the 10.08, I need to do the exact same thing as I did on the denominator. So we're going to move the decimal place one place to the right. So this becomes 100.8. So the actual division you are working out is 100.8 divided by 6. All right. So this here, again, you're going to take the 6 here, right? And this 6 can go into this 10, right? One time. So you're going to get a remainder of 4 because 1 6 is a 6. And you're going to get a remainder of 4 because you're dividing 10 by 6. So then that 4 will have to come here. So now you're going to ask yourself, 6 into 40 is how much? 6 6 is at 36, right? So 6 can go into 46 times and you're going to get a remainder of 4. You're going to put your decimal point here and you're going to have to put a 4 here. So you're going to ask yourself, 6 into 48, right, is going to give us 8. So that's why the answer is 16.8. All right. Right. So some of you all are still arguing or querying whether that answer is correct. I'm telling you that answer is correct. All right. This is something that you should have known since standard 3 times. All right. So I'm going to move on to the next question. All right, question 13 here. We have a diagram and it shows a stone slab on a lawn. The area of the stone slab is 2/5 the area of the lawn. What is the area of the lawn here? Have a look at this question quickly. Right, so we have a stone slab. It's on a lawn, right? And we want to know what is the area of the lawn, right? The area of the lawn is not given. We just know the area of the slab, all right? Right, so I've seen people saying 20. So what I would do in a question like this here, it's the slab is drawn on a grid and the grid is 1 meter by 1 meter, right? So that means that the area of one of these small squares here is actually 1 meter squared. So what I would do, I'd look at this concrete slab here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this area here, right, the area of the concrete slab is actually 8 meters squared. Now that 8 meters squared corresponds to 2/5 of the area of the whole lawn. So therefore, the area of the lawn, right? So in this case here, what we're going to do, we're going to invert this fraction. So you're going to write this as 5/2. And we're going to multiply that by the area of the stone slab here, which is 8. So 2 can go into 8 4 times. So 5/4 will give us 20. So it's going to be 20 meters squared. Now, some people have trouble understanding something like this, but basically this is what's happening here. We are dealing in fifths, right? You have 2/5. So let's draw a diagram here to represent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Now, 2/5 the area of the lawn is the area of the stone slab. So 1, 2, right? So that's 2/5 I'm shading here, and that here represents your 8 meters squared. All right? So that means that one block, right? One block actually represents 4. So you have a 4 here, a 4 here, a 4 here, 4 here, and 4 here, right? So you have 5 4s, and you'll get the same 20 meters squared. All right? Hope that makes some kind of sense. All right, question 14, right? We have a bag of flour, has a mass of 2.8 kilograms, and a bag of rice has a mass of 1,420 grams. What's the difference between the masses, right? What's the difference between the masses? Right, some people are asking if I do a full paper. Yeah, I'm doing a full paper here. One of my own paper here we're doing. All right. All right. Okay, so what's the difference in the masses here? So here's what's happening here. So we have a bag of rice. So the rice has a mass of 2.8 kilograms. So if I want to, now for me, since the mass of the sorry, hold on, there's the flour, right? So the flour is 2.8. All right, so the flour is 2.8 kilograms, and the rice, right, is 1420 grams. All right, now I have two options here. Either you work the answer in kilograms or you can work in grams. Now, in this question here, I didn't specify which one. All right, and if they don't specify one in the exam, you just choose one, either grams or kilograms, right? But whatever they specify, you need to stick to that. So let's stick to, in this case here, I'll work in grams. So 2.8 kilograms, all I'm going to do is multiply this by 1,000. So this is going to be 2,800 grams. Now, the question wants the difference. In maths, difference means to subtract. So we're going to say 2,800 grams, all right? And I'm going to subtract 1,420 grams. And this will give me my difference here, all right? Now we need to do some borrowing here. So we're going to borrow from this 8 here. This becomes 7. This is 10. 0 minus 0 is 0. 10 take away 2, you'll get 8. 7 take away 4, you'll get 3. And we'll get 1,380 grams as our answer. All right? Which is what some of you all are saying. Okay? So you can give your answer in grams, or if they wanted it in kilograms, we just divide by 1,000. So this will be 1.38 kilograms. Okay. Hope that kind of making sense. Okay. Right, so that's number 14. All right, number 15 here, we have a diagram here, and which two angles are less than 90 degrees? All right, now you all need to know for the exam that when we speak about a quarter turn, all right, so if I had an arrow pointing north here, and I were to make a quarter turn, right, so the arrow is rotated this way, that quarter turn there, right, is, so a quarter turn is actually equal to 90 degrees. Okay, so the question is asking which two angles are less than 90 degrees. All right, so kind of just watching the chat a little bit here, right? If I say seeing people wasting time, I'm just gonna put you in a timeout or just remove you from the chat completely, right? So just focus on what I'm doing, please. All right, people saying the answer is A and C. So the only two angles here which are less than 90 will be angle A, that's less than 90, and also angle C, right? So that is true. That's true. We have an incomplete pattern shown below. What is the missing element in the pattern? Right? What is the missing element in the pattern here? Right? So I'm seeing a lot of people saying 34 is the answer. Now let's check to see if that is correct. Now, if we look at the numbers here, right? The first thing you'll do when you have a pattern, look to see if the numbers are increasing or if the numbers are decreasing. We have 3, 5, 8, 13, 21. So definitely the numbers are increasing. But if you notice something here, this increases by 2. This here increases by 3, right? This here increases by, right? That's going to be 5. So the numbers look a little strange, right? So what we do notice though is that when I take 3 and I add it to 5, if I add those two numbers, I'll get 8. If I take 8 and I add it to the 5, I'll get 13. If I take 8 and I add it to 13, I'll get 21. So therefore, what's happening here is that once I add the two previous terms, I'm going to get the new term. So therefore, all I need to do is to add these two numbers here. So we're going to add 13 plus 21. All right. So 3 and 1 is 4. And 1 plus 2 will give us 3. So the missing number here, right, is going to be 34. That's a missing number in this pattern here. Now, this is a special pattern that we have in maths. It's called the Fibonacci sequence. All right. And it could appear in your exam. Sometimes in the exam, we may get simple patterns like this. We might have something like 6, 10, right, 14, right, 18, all right? And in this case here, we need to look to see what is happening. when you look at these numbers here, we are increasing by 4. But this one here, we're also increasing by 4. From here to here, we're still increasing by 4. So therefore, if I want to get that new term there, then it is going to be 18 plus 4, which is 22. All right. So look to see in your patterns whether it's increasing by a constant number or not. Okay. All right. What else we have here? All right. So you have line of symmetry. All right. So sometimes you are given a diagram and we may be asked to complete the shape if we know the line of symmetry. In this case here, right, we have a line of symmetry AB and we want to be able to draw the completed shape. Now, when it comes to line of symmetry, let's say we have a simple rectangle here. All right. And I want to draw my lines of symmetry. Now, what I normally do when I'm teaching this with my Form 5 classes, I tell them, think of the line of symmetry as that line where if I fold the paper, right, my left and right or my top and bottom, they're going to line up exactly. So for example, this blue line that I'm drawing here, that's a line of symmetry. It means that when I fold the paper, right, this part of the shape and this part of the shape, they're going to line up exactly. So that's a line of symmetry. Also, we have a second line of symmetry here, right, along this line. Sorry, yes. Right, we have a line of symmetry going this way as well. All right. And if I fold the paper along that line of symmetry, the top part and the bottom part, they're going to line up exactly. But in this question here now, we have the line of symmetry and we're trying to draw what the whole shape is going to look like. So we can start from the bottom here. So we can draw this line here. Then we can go up here, right? Then we come to the inside. Sorry, not the inside, outside. Right, we're coming this way, right? Then we're going to go up 1, right? And then we're just going to draw a line here in order to complete the shape. All right. So this is a typical question when it comes to line of symmetry. All right. Hope that makes sense. What about this question here? I realize there are lots of students here, right? Not necessarily here right now, but I realize there are lots of students and also 1 or 2 parents as well. They have a little trouble when it comes to identifying what the mode is. All right. They know the definition for mode. They know what it means, right? All right, so guys, I'm watching the chat here, right? So there's no so Kuwin is actually my friend as well, right? So please let's stay away from that, right? We both do a lot of work online, right? And we've been doing it for years, all right? And we are friends, right? So just chill, right? So we have a table here and it shows the scores, right? It shows the scores obtained by a group of students in a maths exam, right? So we have score, we have number of students. We want to know what is the modal score. Like I said, I realize there are lots of students as well as parents who have difficulty with a question like this, right? Curious to see what you all saying for this one. Right, some people saying 10, some people saying 9, some people saying 8. All right, so let me explain this to you guys. Right, let me explain this to you guys. So first of all, I'm sure everybody inside here knows what mode means, right? So when it comes to statistics, mode, right, is the data, right, that appears most frequently. Right? So the data that appears most frequently, right? Now, and this is what I tell my Form 4 and my Form 5 students as well, right? Whatever data is given to you in a table, try to understand the data. So we have the scores obtained by students in a maths exam. So let's look at the scores here. Now, this 5 here, right? That means somebody got a 5. How many students got 5? 8 students got 5. For a score of 6, how many students got 6? There are 7 students who scored 6, right? Now, what we're looking for, so we're looking for the modal score, right? So the answers could only be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Those are the scores obtained in the exam. Now, which score appeared most frequently? When we look at the number of students here, you realize we have 12. This here, right, is the most, right, or the highest frequency, right? Right? So this here is your highest, right, frequency. Now, 12 is not the answer, right? 12 is not the answer. That 12 there means that a score of 9 occurred 12 times. So there were 12 students who got a score of 9. So the modal score here is actually 9, right? So 9 is the answer, right? Is that making sense? Right? Now, I deliberately set up this question like this, right? I deliberately set up the question like this. I even put the frequency of 8 appearing here and 8 appearing here, because I know some students might say the answer is 8, right? But that is not what we're looking for. We are looking for the highest frequency, and what score does that correspond to? So the answer is 9. Moving on to question 19. So we have Ahana, right, obtained a mean score of 16 in 3 exams. So she has a mean score of 16 in 3 exams. She completed a 4th exam and obtained a mean of 17. What score did she obtain in the 4th exam? This is a typical exam question here, right? Yes, Ahana, it is you, right? All right, let me just watch your chats here. Who causing trouble in the chat here? I'll just knock them out. Let's see. Make sure I don't knock out the wrong person, right? All right, try to keep my chat clean, please. All right, because I will bump you off. All right. Some of you are asking for CXC questions. To be honest, there are some questions that you guys get in the SEA exam. If I were to give some Form 5 students to work out those questions, they will have trouble working out those questions. All right. There are some topics that you all get in your exam. They are difficult even for Form 5 students. Right. Okay. So I've seen a lot of answers in the chat here. So we have a mean score of 16. So we have a mean score is equal to 16. All right. And the number of exams that she wrote here is 3 exams. So what I'll do, I'll try to work out the sum of the scores for those 3 exams. How do we do that? We simply take the mean, which is 16, and we're going to multiply that by 3, right? So 6 3s are 18, 1 3 is 3 and 4, so that's 48, right? So that's the sum here of the scores that she got in the 3 exams. Now she did a 4th exam now, and the new mean, right? So the new mean here is 17, but this time you have a 4th exam in the mix, so n is 4, right? We have 4 exams. So the new sum, right, of the 4 exams, right, will be, we have to take 17 and we have to multiply that by 4. So 7 4s are 28. 1 4 is 4, 1 2 6. So we're going to get 68. So the new sum is 68. So therefore, the number that was added So if this was the old sum and this is the new sum, right? All we need to do is to take the new sum, which is 68, and we're going to subtract 48. All right. So therefore, the new number that was added, or the score that you obtained in the fourth exam, is going to be 20. Right. So this is the score in the fourth exam. All right. All right. So that's our answer for question 19. All right. Let's look at the next one here. This one we have a block graph here. So a block graph shows the number of students absent in a school during the first week of school term, right? 102 students were absent, right, during the week, right? Yeah, how many students were absent on Wednesday? How many more students were absent on Wednesday than Monday? All right, so we have a block graph here. So you all need to understand how to interpret block graphs in these things, right? All right, so I'm just gonna just watching what you all say in the chat, right? So let's see who are the persons you want me to bump off. Vanessa and Sedante. All right, this now. All right, I'm just trying to find the names here. Right, so let's see what you are getting for the answer for this one here. How many more students were absent on Wednesday than Monday? Right? All right. All right, people saying the answer is 30. So if you're given a question like this, right? If you're given a question like this, what we need to do, we have a total of 102 students who are absent during the week here. Now, you notice you have no numbers written on this axis here, right? There are no numbers written here. So there's no scale, so we need to figure it out. So the first thing I would do in a question like this, I'll work this out. Count to see how many blocks I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. All right. So in this case here, we have 17 blocks, right? And what we need to do, we need to figure out what is the value of one block. So we're going to take 102, right? And we're going to divide that by 17. So some of you all will be like, well, I'm not too sure how I'm going to divide this, right? So what you can do, you can use trial and error here, right? You have 17 multiplied by what will give me 102. So 7 by 5 will give us, 7, 6, right? So if I take 17, so let's double check something here. 17 by 6. 7 6 is 42. 1 6 is 6 and 4 is 10. You'll get 102, right? So therefore, 102 divided by 17 will give us 6, all right? So if you don't know how to divide by 17, you can use trial and error. And what I just did here, I looked to see 7 by what will give me a number that ends in 2. 7 by 6 will give me 42. All right. So the answer is 6 here for the value of each block. So every block, right? Every block here represents 6 days, right? Every block represents 6 days. So I want to know how many more students were absent on Wednesday. So we're looking at Wednesday and we're looking at Tuesday. Sorry, not Tuesday, Monday. Yeah, Wednesday and Monday. Now the first thing we're going to do, the difference between Wednesday and Monday is on Monday you have 2 blocks here. And so we have 2 blocks. And on Wednesday we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You have 7 blocks here. So the difference between the 2 is going to be 5 blocks. So the answer is going to be 5 multiplied by the value of 1 block, which is 6 by 5 is 30. So that's going to be 30, right? So that's the answer there. It's going to be 30. Right? So that's our answer for that one here, right? So be familiar with this. This typically comes in the exam, all right? Let's move on here again. What about this one here? We have a number sentence that we want to complete. We have 5/8 multiplied by 56, right? And that is equal to some number, right? Something needs to go in the box here. We're going to square that, and then we're going to subtract 1. What's the answer for this one? Those of you who have different methods of working problems, that is okay, right? That is okay. There's no one fixed method to work out your answer, right? Whatever you're comfortable with, and once the maths makes sense, you will get the mark, all right? So don't worry about that too much. Once you get the same final answer. Right? I've seen a lot of people getting 6. So if I had a question like this and I wanted to work this out in the exam, the first thing I'll do, I'll work out the left side. So that's 5 over 8 multiplied by 56 over 1, right? So 8 can go into this 1 time, right? 8 can go into 56 7 times. So that's 7 5s are 35. So on the left-hand side, that works out to be 35. Now let's look at the right-hand side here now. So some number needs to be squared, and when I subtract it, subtract 1, I'll get 35. So since you're subtracting 1 to get 35, it means that on the right-hand side here, right? Remember, this is supposed to give us 35 as well. So the first thing I'll do, I'll add 1 to that, right? So 35, right, plus 1 will give us 36, right? Because I want this block here, I want that block there to be equal to 36. Because 36 minus 1 will give me the 35. So if I were to take 6 squared, I'll get 36. So the number that goes in the block here will be 6. Okay? What about 22 here? We have a large pack of almonds was shared among 8 friends. Each of them received 12 almonds, and there were 5 remaining. What is the total number of almonds in the large pack? So we have a large pack of almonds, all right? And we want to share that. How many did we have in the large bag to begin with? Right? People saying 101. All right, 101. So the thing is, we have 8 friends, right? And each of them received 12 almonds. So the total number of almonds received by the 8 friends will be 12 by 8, right? So we need to multiply this first. So 12 eighths will give us 96. So that's 96 almonds that were shared among the 8 friends. But you had a remainder of 5. So therefore the total that was in the bag to begin with will be 96 plus 5. So that's 6 and 5, 11. 9 and 1 is 10. So therefore what was in the bag originally would have been 101 almonds. Right? So this is the original amount. All right? So that's 22. All right, so Vivek borrowed $36,000 for 3 years at an interest rate of 12% per year. What is the total amount Vivek had to repay? Now, there were certain things that were removed from the syllabus, and it's back in the syllabus. All right, so these things are very possible, are very likely to come in your exam. So things like VAT, things like simple interest, we should expect to see one of those questions on Tuesday, right? All right, how are we doing this here? Simple interest. Some of you all asked about the marks. A question like this here might be about maybe 2 or 3 marks in the exam. Right, section 1 is 1 mark per question in section 1, right? So section 1 is only worth 20 marks. Okay. Some people say in simple interest because all right, yeah, it is simple because it's a straightforward calculation of interest, right? Calculating interest could become a little more complicated, right? Because you also have something called compound interest, right? But I'm not going to confuse anybody here. So it's called simple interest. So more than likely, I suspect we'll get a question like this on Tuesday. All right. So simple interest, you all need to know your simple interest formula. So it's principal by rate by time over 100. That's a formula to calculate simple interest. Okay. Now we want to know what's the total amount that has to be paid back. Now this formula, all the formula does is gives us what the actual interest is. So in this case here, the principal, that's the money that we would have borrowed. All right. Now, when it comes to simple interest, you can either borrow money from the bank or you can put money into the bank. When you borrow money from the bank, you have to pay back interest. If you place money in the bank, you're going to get interest from the bank. All right. So this here, the principal is 36,000 multiplied by the rate. The interest rate in this case here is 12%. We're just going to put it 12. Multiplied by the time, how long we keep any money there, right? In this case, he's borrowing money. So he has 3 years to repay it. So it's going to be 3 here. And then we're going to divide that by 100, right? So this is what we need to work out in order to figure out what the simple interest is. So these 2 zeros here will cancel with these 2 zeros here. So we have to take 360, right? And we have to multiply by 12 by 3, all right? So 12 by 3 is 36. So this is what we're really trying to multiply here, all right? So 0 by 6 will be 0. 6 6 is at 36. 6 3 is at 18, 19, 20, 21. Right? We're going to shift. 0 by 3 is 0. 6 3 is at 18. 3 3 is at 9 and 1 10. Right? So this is 0, 6, 9, 2, 1. Right? Right? So this here, is that correct? Or do I have an extra 0 that's not required? Let me see. Right, so it's 36,000 by 12 by 3. Right, so this is the simple interest, right? The simple interest is 12,960. Now look out for questions like this, right? sometimes they may ask us to work out the simple interest, or they will ask you how much do you have to repay in total. Now remember, the money that Vivek borrowed here is 36,000, right? That's the principal, but the amount he has to pay back would be the principal plus the simple interest. So we have to add this here, 12,960. You have to add that to figure out the total he has to repay. So in this case here, this will be 0, this will be 6, this will be 9, 6 and 2 is 8. So he has to pay back 48,960. All right, so guys, be careful with how you're working out this problem, right? Be careful how you're working out this problem, because some of you all said the answer is 12,960, but you have to add the amount that he borrowed as well, right? Add the amount that he borrowed as well. All right. Oh yeah, somebody's asking about monthly installments. Yes, sometimes they can ask you what is a monthly installment. So if you borrowed money from the bank here, all right, and you have to pay back, now watch this carefully. The interest is this figure here, right? That's a simple interest. Now when you pay back money to the bank, you have to add the principal to that, right? So this here is the correct answer. Now you're not going to pay back all of this in one shot, right? What you're going to do, you're going to pay this over a period of time. So they might tell you you're going to repay it over 2 years, in which case you're going to have to divide by 24 months. So read the question carefully. There are different ways they can ask this. So they can ask you the simple interest. They can ask you how much you have to pay back. They're going to ask you how much you have to pay on a monthly basis if you're going to pay it back over 2 years or 3 years. All right, these are things they can ask. Now this next one here now, we have a simple bill here that we want to complete. All right. So first of all, we have missing values in this bill here. Now a bill typically has your item, what you purchase, how many of them you purchase, what's the cost of one of them, and we have total cost. So let's start with the copybooks here. So we have 4 copybooks, each of them at $3.50. So we're going to take $3.50 and we're going to multiply that by 4. First of all, 0 by 4 is 0, 5 4 is 20, 3 by 4 is 12, and 2 is 40, right? So this here is going to be $14. All right. So now what do we do now? We can work out the row for the erasers, right? We have 2 erasers and the total cost is $2.50. So we can take $2.50 and we're going to divide that by 2, right? Now this is an easy division here. This is actually $1.25. So this here will be 125. That's a missing number here. Now we need to figure out for the pencils. Now to work out for the pencils, all we need to do, since you know what the total bill is, we're going to add up these 2 here and remove it from the $21.75. So $14, right, plus $2.50, right, that's going to give us $16.50. So that's the total cost for the copybooks and the erasers. So we're going to take the total bill, which is the $21.75, and we're going to subtract the $16.50. Right? So this is going to be a 5, this is 2, right? So this is going to be $5.25. Right? That looking correct there? Right? So $5.25. So this figure is going to come here, $5.25. Now we need to figure out what's the cost for one pencil. So to figure out for one pencil, we're going to say $5.25. And we're going to divide that by 3. So that's going to be 1, 3 is 3, right? Remainder 2. So that's going to be 22, right? So that's going to be 7 3s are 21. And then this here will be 5, right? So this here for pencil, it's going to be $1.75. So be prepared, right? Be prepared to work out things like this in the exam, all right? Right, yeah, for this question here, I don't expect you to write the answer in the chat, right? That's fine. That's fine. All right, so be prepared to be able to complete a bill. All right, jumping on to the next question here. All right, now these are section 2 is the section that carries the most amount of marks. All right, and some of the questions can be simple, some of them could be a little difficult. So the cost of a table is 3 times the cost of a chair. The total cost for 2 tables and 3 chairs is $2,790. Calculate the cost of a chair. All right. Now, some of these questions, right? Some of these questions here, you have to think about it carefully, right? Be very careful, right? Be very careful. Think about them carefully. So, the cost of a table is 3 times the cost of a chair. The total cost of 2 tables and 3 chairs is $27.90. I'm trying to I'm waiting for a sec here. I want to see if anybody could figure it out before I work it out, right? Right, some of you all say when we ending, right? I'm aiming for 6 o'clock, right? Around 6-ish. All right, some people saying the answer is $310. All right, now when it comes to working problems, some people have difficulty translating words into what we're supposed to work out. All right, so the cost of a table. So whenever I'm given information, I write it down. So the cost of a table, right? Let's call that T, is 3 times. When you all see 3 times, it means 3 multiplied by the cost of a chair. That's what that statement tells me here. Now the total cost of 2 tables, so let's write this out here. 2 tables plus 3 chairs is equal to $27.90, right? That's what that statement is telling me. And we want to figure out what's the cost of 1 chair, right? You want to figure out the cost of 1 chair. That's what we want, okay? Now, 2 tables, right? Now, if the cost of 1 table is 3 times the cost of a chair, if I have 2 tables, right, that means it'll be 6 times the cost of a chair. That's what it means, all right? Because 1 table costs 3 times the cost of a chair, 2 tables will cost 6 times the cost of a chair. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to replace this here, and I'm going to call this 6C, right, plus 3C is equal to $27.90. So the cost of 6 chairs plus 3 chairs is equal to $27.90. So therefore 9 chairs is $27.90. So therefore the cost of 1 chair will be $27.90 divided by 9. So when I work this out here, I can do a short division here. So 9 into 27 is 3. 9 into 9 is 1. So this here will be $310. All right. So that's the cost here, right? That's the cost here. Right. So that's 25. How about this one here? Jasmine bought 3 rings and 6 bracelets for $600. The cost of 1 ring is $10 less than the cost of 1 bracelet. Calculate the cost of 1 bracelet. All right. Now these are one of the most difficult types of questions that we do get in the exam, right? It's unequal sharing. Those of you who I did a free session on unequal sharing. Just do a search on the channel, and if you have trouble with unequal sharing, have a look at it, right? All right. So for those of you who, with respect to question 25, go back to the recording, right? Go back to the recording, right? Because I want to spend a little more time on this 26 here. This is one that is even harder than 25. right? All right, let me help you all with this one here, because this one here is a bit tricky. All right, so Jasmine bought 3 rings and 6 bracelets, right? So we have rings and bracelets, right? That's what we have here. Now, if we do a question like this here, I normally write quantity and I normally put cost here, right? Now, she bought 3 rings and 6 bracelets. So let's put that here. We have 3 rings and we have 6 bracelets. Okay. Now let's look at the cost now. The cost of the ring is $10 less than the cost of 1 bracelet. Now, when I'm doing an unequal sharing question, what I normally tell my class to do, so we normally use blocks here, and we normally assign the blocks, right? Or assign a block to the one that is less. So the ring is $10 less than the cost of the bracelet. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the cost of 1 ring, right? I don't know what it is. So we're going to use a bar here to represent the cost of 1 ring. In the case of a bracelet, since the cost of 1 ring is $10 less, it means that the cost of the bracelet has to be $10 more, all right, than the cost of a ring, all right? So this is how I typically set up my question like this here. Now, what I do know the total cost for all of these things here. Now, watch this carefully, what I'm going to do, all right? Now, some of you all may have done it differently in school, and that's okay. Whatever you are comfortable with, you stick to that. So let's think about how we're going to work out the total cost here. You bought 3 rings, and we know the cost is 1 block. So the total cost here, right, we have to take the number of rings and multiply by the cost. So this works out to 3 blocks here. Now, the next thing we need to do, we have 6 bracelets, but the total cost here is actually block plus 10. Now, what you need to remember is that we need to take the 6 and multiply by the block. So we get 6 blocks, right? But that 6 also has to multiply by this 10 here, which is going to give us 60. Now, this line here gives me, when I add up everything in that line, that will work out to $600. That's the total cost you paid for these items, right? When you add this up here, it should add up to give us $600. So now we need to figure out what is the value of 1 block. So if I take this and I add it to this, I'll get 9 blocks, right? Plus 60, and that should add up to give us $600. So what we're going to do, first of all, we're going to take 600 and we're going to remove the 60. So let's start borrowing here. This will be 5, this will be 10. 0 minus 0 will give us 0. 10 minus 6 is 4, so that's 540. Now, what that means is that the value of 9 blocks is equal to 540. So the value of 1 block will be 540 divided by 9. So the value of 1 block is $60, right? Now, what I just worked out there is the value of 1 block, which is the cost for 1 ring. The question is asking me for the cost of a bracelet. So the cost of a bracelet, right, is going to be block plus 10. So that's going to be 60 plus 10. So that's going to be $70, right? That's the cost of one bracelet here. Now, I know this question is a little difficult, right? I know that. So what I want you to do is to go back to the recording, right? Go back to the recording, right? And have a look at it. Right? Okay, some people are saying it easy, some people say do it over again. So let's look at this. Let's look at this carefully, right? If I told you, let's look at something simple, right? Let's go with ring, right? And let's go with the bracelet, right? I want you to try to understand how do we calculate the total cost, right? If I told you I purchase 4 rings and I purchase 6 bracelets, right? This is just an example here. And I'm going to use simple figures here. Let's say one ring costs $2 and one bracelet costs $3. And I would have asked you what's the total cost for this. If we think about this logically, what we'll do, we'll have to find the total cost for the rings. Since you purchased 4 at $2, you're going to have to multiply 4 by 2, and that's going to give you $8. All right. If we purchase 6 bracelets and they cost $3, the total cost will be 6 multiplied by 3, which will be $18. All right. So therefore, the total cost for all of this, 4 rings and 6 bracelets, right? That'll be 8 plus 18, and that'll be $26. So this is how I normally teach my classes. First of all, you need to understand how do we get the total cost for these items. You need to know the quantities and you need to know the cost for one of them, right? And that same logic is what I'm using to work out the question. In the question, I have 3 rings and 6 bracelets, and then I know the total cost. Total cost is 600. So that's why I draw up a table, right? You see this here? This is what helps understand what I need to do, right? This here is what is important. So we have the rings and the bracelets. In the question, we know we bought 3 rings, 6 bracelets. You don't know anything about the cost. We just know that the cost of the ring is $10 less than the cost of the bracelet. Now, I normally use a block to represent the cost, right? Or whatever is missing in the question. And I assign the block to the one that has a smaller value. Since the ring is $10 less than the bracelet, it means the cost of the ring is less than the cost of the bracelet. So therefore, I'm going to assign the block to rings, and therefore the bracelet is going to be $10 more. So that is block plus 10. Now, just like we did up here to work out the total cost, you have to take the quantity and multiply by the cost. So that's 3 by a box. We'll get 3 boxes. But what you have to remember here for this one, when you take the 6, you have to multiply by this block here as well as the 10. So you're going to get 6 blocks plus 60. All right. Now, when I add up all of that, the 3 blocks, the 6 blocks, and the 60, they should add up to give me $600. All right. So I'm going to move on to the next one because I want to kind of finish at 6, right? So let's move on here. You can go back to the recording. Question 27. We have some street lights being installed along a street of length 384 meters. Calculate the number of street lights needed. So this is equivalent to those kinds of pool questions that you all see in the exam sometimes. How many street lights are required in this particular case to put along this street here that is 384 meters in length? Right, like some of you all know how to answer those pool questions easily, right? Yeah, I'm hoping to do 40 questions here, guys, right? I'm hoping to do 40 questions, right? So stick around if you can, all right? Okay, so a lot of people saying 33. So when it comes to a pool question here, right? So you have, we need to figure out, first of all, how many spaces do we have, right? Every space here is 12 meters in length, all right? So the first thing I will do, I will say 384 divided by 12. All right, so in this case here, 12 can go into 38 3 times. 12 3s are 36, remainder 2. So then 12 into 24, you're going to get 2. All right. Now, some people want to put 2 as the answer, 32 as the answer, but that's not the answer. Whenever you have poles along a straight line, right, what we need to do is to add 1 to the answer, right? So number of poles in this case here that is required will be 32 plus 1, sorry, which will give us the 33. All right. So please don't make that mistake and put 32 as the answer. All right. Question 28. Rashid wants to tile the following floor space using 20 cm square tiles. How many tiles are required to completely tile the floor? Now, there are 2 ways we can work this problem, right? There are 2 ways we can work this problem. Right? Some people wondering why we need to add 1. So whenever you have poles along a straight road, we need to add 1. If we have a completely, let's say we put in poles around the perimeter of a plot of land, then we do have to add 1. All right. Yeah, it has to do with spaces and pools, right? All right, I've seen somebody got 180, right? 180. Some people get 42. All right, now there are 2 ways we can work this, right? Some students, what they do, they break up this into 2 shapes, and what they do, they find the total area of 1 and add it to the next one. So they find the total area of the entire floor that we have here, right? Most likely in cm squared. And then we're going to divide that by the area of 1 tile, 1 square tile. Now that's one way of working the problem. You can do that if you want, right? There is an alternative way. So first of all, since we have a 20 cm square tiles, right? The area of 1 tile, right? We have 20 cm, 20 cm, right? The area of this here is going to be 20 by 20, right? Which is going to be 400 cm squared. So this is how some people work it. They work out the area of 1 tile, and then what they do, they work out the area of this entire shape here and divide by 400. That is one option that you can do. All right. So in this case here, 6 meters, right, is actually 600 cm. And this here is also 600 cm, right? This full length here is going to be 18 meters, right, or 1800 cm, and this here will be 800 cm. All right. So what some people do, they will work out this area A1, work out this area A2, right, add them up, and then they're going to divide that by 400. That's one way of working the problem. All right. So for me here, right, so 600 multiplied by 600, 6 6 is at 36. 1 2 3 4, right? So this here represents the area A1, right? That's up here. The area A2 will be 1800, all right, multiplied by 800, right? So that's 8 8 is 64, 1 8 is 8, and 6 is 14, and this is 1 2 3 4, right? So that's the area A2 in cm squared. So the total area of this thing here will be 144, right? 1 2 3 4 plus right? So this is 1 2 3 4, 6 and 4 is 10, right? Right. So this here represents the total area that needs to be tiled. Right, that's the total area that needs to be tiled. Now, what do we do with that now? Next thing we're going to do, we're going to see, so the number of tiles, right, is equal to 180,000, right? Is that correct? No. Right. divided by 400, right? So this 0 will cancel with this here, right? Right? So we need to divide that here, right? When I divide this here now, I'm going to get 4500. So 4,500 tiles is what I'm getting. Yeah, Ariel Rogers. Yeah, that's exactly what you're doing. You need to find the area of the whole surface that they want to tile and divide it by the area of one tile, right? All right, so I'm gonna move on here, right? That's 28. What about 29? So a piece of wire is used to create a rectangle of width 12 cm. The length of the rectangle, right, is 8 cm longer than the width. What is the length of the wire? So we have a piece of wire here that is in the form of a rectangle, right? So the width of the rectangle is 12 cm. So this here is 12 cm. The length of the rectangle is 8 cm longer than the width. So if it's 8 cm longer, it'll be 12 plus 8, which will be 20 cm, right? I want to know the length of the wire. Now, since we're using a piece of wire to make the rectangle, all we need to do is to find the perimeter here. So to find the perimeter, right, this will also be 20 cm. This will also be 12 cm. So the perimeter is simply going to be, right, 20 plus 12, right, plus 20 plus 12, right? So that's going to be 40 plus 12 plus 12, right, which is 64. So this is going to be 64 cm. Right? Just make sure you know your formulas. The perimeter of a rectangle is length plus W multiplied by 2. You can use that. Area of a perimeter, area of a rectangle is length multiplied by width. Right? Make sure you know these two formulas. Right? For a square, right, the perimeter, let's say we have one side here. The perimeter is 4 multiplied by the length of one side. And the area is equal to side multiplied by side, or side square, right? So this here is for a square, right? You'll need to make sure you know that for the exam, okay? Right, so that's 29. Moving on. So Richard started laying bricks for a wall at a construction site. He started working at 8:15 a.m. He took 5 minutes to lay one brick. After laying a set of 40 bricks, he took a water break of 15 minutes. All right. He laid 80 bricks. What time did he finish working? Okay, so we have a time question here. So he started work at 8:15, all right, yeah, that's his starting time here. Now he's taken 5 minutes to lay one brick, right? And after he lays 40 bricks, right, he takes a water break of 15 minutes. All right, so he's laying a total of 80 bricks here. So let's work out the time taken to lay these 80 bricks. So it's going to be 80 multiplied by 5, right? So that's 8 5s are 40. So that's 400 minutes here, right? That is taken to actually lay these 80 bricks, all right? Now, what else happened there? Right, he took a 15-minute break, right? So he would have laid 40 bricks, right? Then he would have taken a break, right? So he takes a 15-minute break in the middle here, right? To have some water, right? And then he went and he installed the rest of the bricks here, okay? So first thing we need to do, we need to figure out 400 minutes is how many hours, all right? So 400 minutes, right? We have to divide that by 60 to figure out how many hours that is. So this 0 will cancel with this, right? So how much are we gonna get here, right? This will be 6 hours. 6 is at 36, and you're gonna have 4 remainder, so that's 4 over 6. All right, so that's the same as saying 6 and 2/3 hours, right? This is the amount of hours that you work for, right? Now here's what you have to be careful with here when it comes to time, right? So this is hours, this is minutes here. So 2/3 of an hour, we need to figure out how many minutes that is. So 2/3 multiplied by 60, right? So that's going to be 40 minutes, right? So the time taken for him to actually lay the bricks here is 6 hours, right? And 40 minutes, okay? Now, we also took a 15-minute break inside here. So what we're going to do, we're going to add. So this is 6 hours and 40 minutes we need to add. Plus we need to add a 15-minute break here, right? And then based on that, we'll be able to work out what time we finish it, right? Right, so let's add this up here. So we have 5 and 5 is 10. So we're gonna add our minutes on the outside here, right? So this next one here is 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, 70 minutes here, right? Right, so in this case here, I'm getting 70 minutes, but that's not what I'm gonna put here. So we're gonna take 70 and we're gonna subtract 60, right? So we're gonna put 10 here, right? And you're gonna put this here. So you're gonna get 8 and 1, 9 and 6 is 14, right? Now this time here is in 24-hour time. So this works out to be, right, 2:10 p.m. Right? Or did I make a mistake here? Right? I'm getting 2:10. Is that correct? See a lot of people getting 3:10. I missed out something here. Oh, it has to be 3:10. My bad. Here's why it's 3:10. I missed out a 1 here. 8 and 6, 14 and 150. Right? Yeah. It's supposed to be 3:10. 3:10 p.m. Right? So I'm moving on again. So the diagram shows a rectangular lawn, 21 meters by 6 meters. There are 4 identical square stone pavers equally spaced apart on the lawn. Calculate the area of the lawn not covered by the stone pavers. All right. Now, I have this question in section 2 here, but it could appear in the third section of the exam, right? So we have these stone pavers here, and they're equally spaced. They have the same size. So we want to figure out the area not covered by the stone pavers. All right. So you want the white part. So the first thing I'll do, I'll work out the area of the whole lawn, which is 21 by 6. So 1 6 is a 6, 2 6 is a 12. So that's 126 meters squared. All right. So that's the area of the whole thing. Now I need to remove the area of these pavers here. I need to remove this. But the thing is, I don't know what is the dimensions of that. But they give me sufficient information. From here to here is 1.2 meters, right? From here to here is 1.2 meters. How I know that? It is because I said they are equally spaced apart, all right? So now what I need to do, I can work out this distance here. This plus this plus this plus this. I can work that out. So you have three spaces of 1.2. So we're going to say 1.2 multiplied by 3. So 2 3s are 6. 1 3 is 3. So this is the total spacing between those brick pavers or stone pavers. Now what I'm going to do now, I'm going to remove those spaces from this 15.6. So 15.6 meters minus the 3.6. We're going to get 0. 5 take away 3 is 2. So we're going to get 12, right? So that distance there, that 12 represents this side plus this side plus this side plus this side. Those are 4 lengths here. So that means that the length of one side of a square will be 12 divided by 4, and you're going to get 3 meters. Okay? So what I just worked out here is this length is going to be 3 meters. It's a square, so this length here is also going to be 3 meters. So now I can figure out the total area of all those squares. So one of them, right, will be 9, 3 by 3. So one of this here will be 9 meters squared. This will also be 9 meters squared. That's 9 meters squared. That's 9 meters squared. So the total area of all the stone pavers will be 9 multiplied by 4, because you have 4 of them. And that's 36 meters squared. So all I need to do is to take the area of the whole shape, which is 126, and minus 36. So 6 take away 6 is 0. 12 take away 3 is 9. So our answer here is going to be 90 meters squared. All right. All right. So I'm going to move on. Right. I'm going to move on. It's been recorded, so you can go back to try to understand what I did. In this question here, a box contains small cubes of side 3 cm. What is the volume of the box remains to be filled? What volume of the box remains to be filled with cubes? All right. So normally we see questions where we are filling, or we have some boxes or cubes inside a box, and we need to figure out how many more cubes are required to fill the box, right? But in this case here, what I'm asking for is the volume of box that remains to be filled with the cubes. So the first thing we need to do, we need to figure out what is the total volume of the whole box, right? And we're going to use the fact that one side of the cube is 3 cm. So I need to figure out the dimensions of these things here, right? So from here to here, this length, right? You have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is going to be 4 by 3, which is 12 cm. That's this length. If we go across here, right, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 cubes as well. So this is also 12 cm, right? And the height of this thing here, right, we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 5 3s are 50 cm, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to first work out the volume of the whole box. Right? So to work that out, we just need to multiply 15 by 12 by 12. So that's 12 12s are 144. So we just need to take 144 multiplied by 15. 4 5s are 20, 4 5s are 20, and 2 is 22. 1 5 is 5, and 2 is 7. 0 4 4 1 0 6. Right, so that's the area, sorry, that's the volume. So this is cube, 2160. That's the volume of the whole box, right? Now what I need to do, so the volume of one cube is going to be 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 3. So that's 3 3s are 9, 3s are 27 cm cube. That's the volume of one of the cubes here. Now I need to check to see how many cubes I have in total. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I have a total of 14 cubes here. So that's 14 by 27 we need to work out. 1 7 is 7 and 2 is 9. 0, 4 2s are 8, 1 2 is 2. Right? So this represents the volume of that is filled with the cubes here. So to get my answer, we're going to take the 2160, that's the total volume of the whole box, minus the total volume of the cubes that are in the box, which is 378, right? All right, so let's see how we're going to do this here now. Borrow from this. This is 1. This will be 11. Still need to borrow. So this becomes 10. This is 16, 15, and this is 10. 10 take away 8 is 2, right? 7 and 8 is 15, 7. Right? So that is the volume that has to be filled, right? All right, so that's number 32. All right, so I just gonna move on, guys. I wanna at least finish the whole paper. All right. All right, Justine's mean score in 2 maths exams was 82. She scored 8 more marks in the second exam than the first exam. What was her score in the second exam? So she has 2 exams, right? So she has exam 1 and she has exam 2, right? Her mean is 82. So the mean score is 82, all right? And we have 2 exams, right? So you have 2 exams here. So the sum of the 2 scores, right? The sum of the 2 scores will simply be 82 multiplied by 2. So 2 2s are 4, 8 2s are 60. So what that means is that when I add up her 2 scores in both exams, I should get 164. Now she scored 8 more marks in the second exam than the first exam. So let's say she scored that amount, box, in the first exam. In the second exam, she would have scored box plus 8. All right. Now, when I add up this exam score plus this exam score, they should add up to 164. So when I add up those two here, I'll get 2 boxes plus 8 is equal to 164. So let's take the 164 and remove that 8 there. All right. So let's borrow from this. This will be 5. This is 14. 14 minus 8 will give us 6. So this will give us 156. Now, what does that 156 tell me here? It means that the value of 2 boxes is 156. So the value of 1 box will be 156 all over 2. So that's going to be 7 2s are 14, 78. All right. So that means that she scored 78 in the first exam. And in exam 2, she scored 78 plus 8, which is going to be 86. Right? So she scored 86 in the second exam, right? All right. Let's move on. Yes, we are doing a sorry, I published as section 3 here, but it's not section 3 yet, right? It's from 37 is section 3. All right, so all right. We have a pictograph here. It shows the number of cars parked in 3 floors of a mall. So we have floor 1, floor 2, floor 3. There are 16 more cars parked in floor 1 than floor 3. What is the total number of cars parked in the mall? All right. All right, I see people saying 96. Let's check that. So if we look at, so there's 16 more cars parked in floor 1 and floor 3. So this is floor 3 here. This is floor 1. All right. The difference here is that we have 2 extra cars here, right? Now, 2 cars, right? So 2 cars has a value. Now they said 16 more cars. So that means that 2 cars has a value of 16. So 1 car has a value of 16 over 2. So 1 car is equal to 8, right? 1 car is equal to 8. So if I want to work out the total number of cars parked in the mall, just look at the pictograph and add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we're going to say 12 multiplied by 8, because that's the value of 1 car, and you're going to get 96 cars in total, right? So that's the number of cars that are parked in this mall right now, right? All right, let's look at these last few questions here, right? Now, these questions are usually a little trickier, right? So at a school event, 75% of the participants were students and 2/3 of the remaining participants were teachers. The rest of the participants were parents. If there were 240 more students than parents, how many people were at the school event altogether? Now, these questions here, they tend to be a little tricky sometimes, all right? So let's draw. I'm going to use a diagram here to help me understand the question, first of all. So this block here that I'm drawing here represents everybody who is at the event, right? Now, the question says 75% of the participants were students, right? Now, we can do this in terms of fractions or percentages. Doesn't really matter, right? 75% is 3/4. So let's visualize what's happening here. So this is 3/4 of the whole participants. So therefore, what we're left with here is a quarter, right? So 75% is students. So this block here represents all our students who are here, all right? Now, 2/3 of the remaining participants were teachers. So let's break this block here up further, right? So I'm going to break up this remainder here, right? And I'm going to break that up into 2/3 and 1/3. So this here is 2/3, and then this has to be 1/3. All right. Now, what are we saying here? So 2/3 of the remaining participants were teachers. So this here represents our teachers. Right. And this here will represent who? What are we left with? Right. So the rest of the participants were parents. So this here represents our parents. So whenever you get a question like this here, it's best that you draw a diagram so you visualize what's actually happening here. All right. So if there were 240, now this part here is what we need to pay attention to. There were 240 more students than parents, right? 240 students, right? More students than parents, okay? So what I would do here in a case like this, I will work out, so the fraction for students, right? That's equal to 3/4. That's 3/4 of the original amount of participants, right? I need to work out the fraction for parents. Right, so the fraction for parents here, now the parents is really 1/3 of a quarter. That's what it is, right? 1/3 of a quarter, right? So you have to take the 1/3, this 1/3 here, and you have to multiply by this quarter here. So that's going to give us 1/12, right? Now, let's write this fraction for the students. Let's write that as something over 12 as well. So if you want to write that as something over 12, that is actually 9/12, okay? So what I know the fraction of the whole that represents students. That's 9/12. I know the fraction of the whole that represents parents. Now the question says there are 240 more students than parents. So our difference between the parents and the students, right, will be 9/12 minus 1/12, and that's going to give us 8/12, right? Or you can reduce that if you want. That's going to be 2/3, right? Now this here represents the difference between our parents and our students, right? Now that 2/3 there, right? That 2/3 there is actually represented by 240, right? So if you want to get a whole, right, or the beginning number of participants, what we need to do, we need to invert that fraction of 2/3, and you're going to multiply that by 240, and that is going to give us our answer, right? So this 2 can go into this 12 times, 120 by 3, 12 3s are 36. So at this event, we had 360 participants. All right, so I know some of these questions, especially in section 3, they could be a little tricky, all right? Right, so that's the answer for that question here, right? So that's question 37. All right, I'm moving on. It's like I said, its session has been recorded, right? So Ben uses a 300 milliliter plastic container to pour water into an empty aquarium. He pours 20 cups of water into the aquarium. What percentage of the aquarium is empty, right? So he's taking the water using this here, right? And he's pouring it into this here. So you want to figure out what's the percentage of the aquarium that is empty. So the first thing, he used 20 cups of water. So the first thing I would do, I will take the 300, right? That's the capacity of 1 cup here. And we're going to multiply that by 20, right? So 3 2s are 6. So that's going to be 6,000, right? In this case here, right? So that's 6,000 milliliter of water that you're pouring inside this here, right? What I'm going to do now, I'm going to work out what's the total capacity of the aquarium. So to do that, we have to take 60, multiply by 20 by 15. So 60 by 20, right? You'll get 6 2s are 12. So that's 1,200 milliliters. And then we still have to multiply that by 50. So 1,200 multiplied by 15, right? So in this case here, we can just say 12 by 15, right? Right, so we'll do this in a shorthand way here. Zero divided by 10. Right. Right, so that's 18,000 milliliters. Now, so we know the capacity of the aquarium, it's 18,000, and we know how much water we added. So the percentage empty, so percentage empty, right? So what I need to do, I need to take 18,000, right? And let's remove the 1,200 here to figure out how much empty space we have, right? Oh, sorry, wait, what am I doing? Hold on. That's when I'm working all over the place, right? So listen, this here is the capacity of the aquarium, right? This is how much water we added to the aquarium. So the amount that is missing, right, or the empty part will be 18,000, right, minus 6,000, right? So this is 0, 0, 0. 8 take away 6 is 2, right? So that is 12,000 milliliter, right? So that's the amount that is left to be filled. So the percentage empty will be 12,000 all over the capacity, which is 18,000 multiplied by 100. Okay, so these zeros here will cancel. This will be 6 2s are 12 over 9, right, by 100, which is 2/3 by 100, right? So 2/3 as a percentage will be 66 and 2/3%. All right, so that's the percentage of this aquarium that is empty. Right, so it's 66 and 2/3. All right, so almost finished, right? Almost finished, right? I think I just have 2 more questions here. All right, so sometimes you may be given patterns in the exam and you have to figure out what's going on in the pattern, right? So we have equilateral triangles, right? Each having a side of 1 cm. So an equilateral triangle, right? We're using it to create a pattern of larger triangles. The first 3 figures in the pattern are shown, right? So we have figure 1, figure 2, and figure 3. Now we have a table here where we have the 3 figures. We have perimeter of the large rectangle. We have number of triangles that we're using to make this thing here, right? How many small equilateral triangles are required for figure 9? Now, please have a look at this, right? Please have a look at this, right? Right? So I wasn't paying attention to the chat, so I don't know what kind of craziness going on in the chat here. But what I want to know is what is the answer for the first part? How many small equilateral triangles are needed for figure 9? That's what I want to know. Right? Right? How many small equilateral triangles are required for figure 9? Right? Right? Some people saying 81, some people saying 100. Let's see what's happening here. Now, whenever you are given questions like this here, we have to look to see what is the pattern, right? What is the pattern happening here? Now, if you notice, the number of triangles in the first figure, it was 4, right? Then in the second figure, we have 9. In the third figure, we have 16. Now, you all need to recognize that here what? All right? Let me just show you something here. So, figure, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. What you need to realize is that these numbers that we see in here, those are square numbers, right? So in figure 1, you had 4 small triangles. And the next one here, we had 9, right? And then we jump to 16, right? What we're trying to work out here, we're trying to work out for figure 9. So what you need to do, you need to figure out what square number are we looking for there, right? So the next number that comes in the sequence here will be 25. Then what comes next will be 36, right? Then we have 49, right? So 7 sevens are 49. 8 eights are 64, right? And then 9 nines are 81, right? And 10 tens will give us 100, right? So the number of small equilateral triangles that we're going to need here, right, is going to be 100, right? This is what is going to be, this is the answer for this part here, right? I hope that making sense. You're going to need 100 small triangles in order to get this, right? All right, great. So 1 or 2 people said they had that, all right? Now, the next part here, we want to know what's the perimeter of figure 12. Look to see what's happening in the pattern here, and let's see what is going to be for figure 12. Right, I've seen some people saying 36. So for a question like this here, watch to see what's happening here. So we start off with 6, 9, and then 12. All right, what are we doing here? If we jump from this here to this, we are adding 3. When you jump from here to here, you are also adding 3. So basically, every time we add, right, or every time we move from one figure to the next, we are actually adding 3 to it, right? So what I would do in a question like this here, you starting off again with figure, right? And you want to go up to figure 12. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And we know that in figure 1 we had 6. So basically we're just gonna be adding 3 all the time. So 6, 9, 12, right? 15, then 18, right? That's 21, right? This is 24. This will be 27, right? This will be 30. This will be 33. This will be 36. And this here will be 39. All right. So in terms of the perimeter, right? The perimeter is this here we're talking about, right? This is the perimeter here. All right. So in that case, that answer there is going to be 39. Right? I see people saying 36. Let me double check, make sure. 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? I'm getting 39 for this one. Right? Right? We just have one question, right? I know some of you are ready to go, right? We just have one more question here. So we have an incomplete bar graph, right? Or bar chart. It shows the number of mangoes sold at a fruit stall. The number of mangoes sold on Thursday is 2/3 the number of mangoes sold on Friday. All right. So on Friday, we have a total of 60 mangoes sold. So if you want to work out for Thursday, all we need to do is to find 2/3 multiplied by 60, right? So 3 into 60 will be 20. So this will be 40, right? So for Thursday, all we need to do is to draw a bar that goes from here right? So that's what's happening here for Thursday. Now, what else do we know? We know that the mean number of mangoes from Monday to Friday is 37. So the mean number of mangoes, right, sold is 37. So what I would do, I will take 37, that's the mean, and I'll multiply by the 5 days. So that's 7 5s are 35, 3 5s are 15, and 3 is 18. All right? So that means that the sum of all the mangoes sold over the 5 days is 185. Now, what I can do with that? On Monday, we sold 40. On Thursday, we sold 40. And then on Friday, we sold 60, right? So if I add that up, right, this will be 40 plus 40 plus 60. That's going to give us 148, right? Now we have 140, right? When we add up Monday, Thursday, and Friday. So therefore, we can actually work out the total mangoes sold between Tuesday and Wednesday. So all we do, we take 185 and minus 140. So that's going to give us, this will be 5 and this will be 45, right? So the total mangoes sold between Tuesday and Wednesday is 45. What else did they tell us? They said the number of mangoes sold on Wednesday is twice that sold on, sorry, the number of mangoes sold on Wednesday is twice, it should have been Tuesday, sorry. Right? So the number of mangoes sold on Wednesday, right, is twice the number sold on Tuesday, right? So how are we going to do this? So we have Tuesday and we have Wednesday, right? Now, when they tell us things like this, where twice the number is sold on Tuesday, right? All right, so Wednesday, so let's put a box here to represent Tuesday. And if it's twice Wednesday, we're going to put it as 2 blocks here, right? Now, when I add up these two things here, I should get 45. So that means that 1 block plus 2 blocks, that'll be 3 blocks. So 3 blocks is equal to 45. So 1 block is 45 over 3. So therefore, the value of 1 block here will be 15. So therefore, on Tuesday, they would have sold 15 mangoes. So we're just going to draw a bar here to represent 15, right? All right, and then on Wednesday now, if it is twice as much, then this has to go up to 30, right? So we're going to draw a bar here that goes up to 30. Right? So this is what our bar graph is going to look like, right? That's what our bar graph is going to look like, right? All right, so guys, this is the time, only time that I have to be able to spend with you guys, right? I hope this session was a bit valuable for you guys, right? I wasn't paying attention to the chat. I don't know what's going on in the chat. So for those of you who came and you had to deal with some of these people, right? I'm sorry about that, right? But I'm glad some of you all were able to be here, right? When it comes to the exam, please read your questions carefully, all right? Make sure that you are answering exactly what is being asked, all right? So good luck everybody on the exam next week, right? Just read your questions carefully. Hopefully you'll get a nice exam, right? So that's it for me for this afternoon, everybody. Take care, good luck, right? And I'll see you sometime.